And welcome to Ask SCW here on SCW, the wrestling channel here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave in the comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. Taking your questions once again from Twitter.com today. Of course, you can always message me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or here on YouTube. Just leave the hashtag AskSCW with your question. I'll make sure to answer it in the next video here on YouTube of AskSCW. So without further ado, got plenty of questions to get through today, so let's start with our first one right now. And that comes from the hard-hitting wrestling podcast. Who will Hulk Hogan challenge at WrestleMania? Great question to kick things off this week. I'm hoping no one, if I'm brutally honest. I'm not to be cruel, but I do think Hogan's time has passed. I mean, he's a lot older now. His glory days, you could say even really the height of Hulkamania was back in the late 80s. So, I mean, we're talking someone that 30 years ago was at their peak. You could argue he reinvented himself in the mid-90s to the early noughties, which got him through. But for me, really, I don't really need to see Hulk Hogan in the wrestling ring anymore. I understand that he probably wants to finish things on his terms on the biggest show of the year for WWE on a WrestleMania. I don't blame him for that, but I'm not sure what we would get out of it from this point. I mean, it's not going to put somebody, over majorly, I don't feel. I mean, you could argue and say, well, look, if you put Keith Lee in there against Hulk Hogan, anyone who beats Hogan is immediately going to get a bigger name and reputation because of it. But I mean, like I said, someone's height of their glory was 30 years ago. I don't really see that in this current day and form. We look and say, like last year, Baron Corbin, he did benefit from beating Kurt Angle, that was Kurt Angle's last match, and Kurt Angle was wrestling Hogan, who was fairly new in WWE at that point, 20 years ago. And that really tells you everything. When Angle and the likes of Brock Lesnar were going over at Hulk Hogan 20 or 18 years ago on a SmackDown, that's when you kind of feel like that's when they got the rub from Hogan jobbing to them. I don't really see the same thing now. I feel that it's those guys now that would job to someone like a Keith Lee that would really benefit that type of superstar and elevate them. Triple H still, when he gives the rub, when he loses, it means something. I think if Shawn Michaels came back, perhaps it would, but again, he's not wrestled for 10 years. It's certain superstars like Randy Orton. Edge now has come back in, I suppose now would really give someone that elevation if there was to. And these are guys that have all, started around the time when Hogan was kind of stopping with WWE. So for me, I'm not sure it gives the same message, but I do feel that if Hogan was to have it, and this is now to answer your question, I think you need to go for the dream match element. So I usually say elevate a newer superstar, give them the rub. Not in Hogan's case. The money match for me would be John Cena versus Hulk Hogan, purely because an icon of one generation against an icon of another generation. The match can have low expectations of match quality. John is a safe worker as well, even though he's not working as regularly in a wrestling ring these days. I still think he would be a safe worker for Hogan, and I feel that would be the way to go forward. You could argue maybe something like Roman Reigns could be someone that would work. Maybe Braun Strowman as well would be another superstar that perhaps could benefit from the idea of it. But for me, I think Big Match John is the one to go because Braun Strowman isn't at that level. He should have been a champion by now. Roman Reigns is the face of the current crop in WWE, but at the same time, I think he's got things that he could be doing different and could be going for a main event title instead of actually going against the likes of Hogan. So for me, John Cena would be the one. Ironically, our second question is coming from Matthew Shedden, who asks, if John Cena has a match at this year's WrestleMania, who do you think he will face? Well, I don't actually think he'll face Hulk Hogan, to be brutally honest. From the rumour mill of what I've seen that Elias is the potential guy that could be facing John Cena at WrestleMania. Now, again, I don't want to be critical, but I had a bigger idea for John Cena if he wants to come back in. And I think Cena is a guy who could put someone over and it would mean something and it would elevate them, which, arguably, I don't think Hogan would do at this stage of his career, but that's not to go on to the last question. Let's go on to this question here. Elias, for me, is someone who has got the ability to become a top guy in WWE, but I don't think he's got the top guy ability now. John Cena should come in and put someone over now. I've seen the rumours of Cena versus Goldberg. Again, it's a similar situation of the dream match scenario, which, okay, I'm sort of in favour of, but I think we could utilise Big Match John in a different and better way here. Elias, as I said, is someone that's rumoured to be that guy. I wouldn't go for it. I do think someone like Baron Corbin would benefit because he's someone who could be, ideally he would be someone that, maybe not ideally to a lot of people, but he's someone who could be in the main event in the next 12 months. He's someone that could be a champion, and that is the sort of person that should be beating John Cena. Someone who go, we're going to strap a rocket to this person and we're going to take them to the main event. That is the place they're going to be going. So I think a superstar like that should be taking on John Cena at WrestleMania and defeating John Cena. Other people like that, I mean, like I said, Braun Strowman would benefit from it as well. That would be the sort of match that could put him in the main event. So I would be kind of on board with Braun. That would be my choice. But I suppose if I was to go with a match, though, that would make most sense for John, and this is now going to be the official answers now I think about it, what is the purpose for John Cena to come back on SmackDown to compete at WrestleMania? The 17th world title. That is the match that makes sense. So, I mean, I personally, if I was booking WrestleMania right now, I would probably go with him versus The Fiend because Cena doesn't have to beat The Fiend. He can try for the 17th world title, doesn't have to succeed. The Fiend retains the championship. He's still over because The Fiend's going to be massively over during WrestleMania weekend. A top guy would elevate him as champion further. I mean, his merchandise is selling so well anyway, but it would just give that extra bit of a rub. And they've got history as well. One of probably White's best feuds in WWE was John Cena, which, if I'm not mistaken, he lost that feud, and he certainly lost the WrestleMania match, which you could argue that was a detriment to the Bray Wyatt character back then, and that would give The Fiend a reason to actually get involved against John Cena. So if you want my opinion, Bray Wyatt is the right guy. If you've got to do it where it can't be a championship match, I would go with Braun Strowman. Comes from WrestleGram, and they ask, having Cena, Goldberg, Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns, do you think WWE have a good lineup for WrestleMania juggling between those four, or is it another WrestleMania 32 situation? Well, WrestleMania 32 had a lot of injuries, so I mean, they were kind of, their hands were forced with the plans that they had, and I suppose with the Hell in a Cell match, they went with The Undertaker, Shane McMahon, and they're probably different directions to perhaps what they would have gone in originally. But looking at this year's WrestleMania, I think what they're looking to do is, especially with the rumours going around with this streaming, if they want to sell WrestleMania as a streaming service, they want as many big names on this card as possible. I've seen rumours of The Undertaker having a match as well, flirting with a match with AJ Styles. I've seen the Taker Sting rumours again for the first time in a few years that Sting's medically cleared. I'm not sure if any of those are going to happen. Looking at those four guys, if you're going to make matches, I would do Goldberg versus Roman Reigns. And I would do, as I said before, Cena versus Wyatt. I personally think that, yeah, it kind of works, but I always believe that WrestleMania is the time that the casual fans come back in. If you've got any hardcore fans throughout the whole year, it's almost like a sport if you are not a big follower of it, but you watch the final. Like maybe if you don't follow the NFL, but you watch the Super Bowl. You might not be a big soccer fan, but you watch the World Cup final. For me, it's football, by the way. The ball is round. But a different subject, different time. But yeah, if you look at those things and people say, yeah, but I'm going to watch that because it's the main one. People do that with WrestleMania. They don't necessarily follow everything all through the year, but WrestleMania comes around, that little bit of nostalgia kicks in, whether they've been a fan before or they think, well, it's a big spectacle show, gonna watch this. This is the time to put someone over. Last year, Kofi Kingston beat Daniel Bryan, become WWE champion. That is a moment you put someone over big time. What's he doing this year? It doesn't look like they're gonna follow up on it, because they could do with a casual fan. They would see him in a big match the second year in a row. They'd take him more seriously, and I think that's what they need to do. They need to make the guys that are, almost, building themselves to be the new future of the company rather than relying on these nostalgia acts. If you're going to continue to have a successful company, we can't keep relying on the old guard. You need to blood in the fresh people and put them and put a rocket to them, send them to the moon, because these guys need to be, carrying the company for the next 5 to 10 years. Roman Reigns has kind of been a guy doing that. Seth Rollins has been someone that's been doing that. And, we've now got the potential to do it with The Fiend. We've got other superstars that should be doing it that are not. I keep mentioning Braun Strowman on this video. He should be a world champion by now. He's the IC champion, but for me, it doesn't kind of work. I want to see him in the main event because he's an attraction. He's a big guy. He can move around the ring. Okay, now he runs a lot these days, but he used to have a skilled moveset, and I want to see more of that instead of just seeing, we say these tried and tested names. We've got Brock Lesnar and we've got Drew McIntyre in a match. This is a way to make Drew McIntyre a star. We started at the Rumble, we continue at Mania. If we've got Styles and Taker, give Styles the win. You need to do this at this point, because You need these superstars to be believed in as something important, because in 5 years from now, if all these guys keep losing to the old superstars, everyone's going to still crave the nostalgia. These new stars are not going to mean nothing. And if we're being brutally honest here, I mean, WWE relies not really on the TV rating these days, on the network buys, probably not as good as what they'd want. And you look and say, well, they've got these great big money deals that they've got with the TV networks, the Fox deal, the USA Network. They've gone for the UK markets with BT Sports. We've even got terrestrial TV, Channel 5, which, you know, is free TV, finally, for UK viewers, has an opportunity on the weekend to watch highlights of the best of WWE. And I think that's massive. It's great to make new fans, young fans. I feel these days we've got a lot of fans that are like, I mean, I could be wrong, people that are questioning the videos. I don't see faces with a lot of the questions, but I mean, I'm not someone that's young. I watched this from like the early 90s and I followed it all the way through. I hope I'm not giving my age away, but you know, I'm not someone that's joined in the last 5 to 10 years of wrestling, and I think a lot of fans are not doing that. You look at NXT, their best demographic rating is the over 50s. A lot of people were born with this and have followed it all the way through, and I think that is something that it needs to change. And because even when you see like the demographics like 18 to 49, I don't know how the American demographics work, but a lot of that demographic is still probably people in their 30s and their 40s, because they're still part of it. They're probably in the second half of it. But what about these people that are in that younger part of the market? Is wrestling cool enough for them? I'm not so sure, because all they see is these old guys come in, and that's what was wrong with WCW back in the days. We want to see the new guys really pushed, and for me, I think that's what I want to see. And maybe that means that Reigns and The Fiend is the best way to go forward. Maybe Goldberg and Cena, if you want to have an attraction match, yeah, okay, do it. But for me, I would put the younger talent over. If you've got to have the legends, put the younger talent over, and then we've got a chance in years and years to come, and have a long-term strategy. If we say here, like we had Reigns versus Goldberg and Reigns wins, if Wyatt beats Cena, if, you know, Star Wars beats Taker, make it mean something. Next year at WrestleMania, those guys are against each other. Have a long-term strategy plan. I know things change with contracts and injuries and stuff like that, but I mean, literally, you've got to have a long-term plan here, because I do actually worry where we're going to be in another 10 years now when it comes to wrestling, because when you look at WWE, like I say, they're relying on that old guard, and I'm not sure that that's the right move to continue to do WrestleMania after WrestleMania. A lot of people said with the WrestleManias around 25, 26, 27, 28, that, oh, it was great where there were all these great legend matches and these top stars literally towards near the end of their best were against each other. But I kind of look back at it and think that it was a big mistake now when you look back at it. Yeah, there were some great matches. Taker versus Shawn Michaels. You wouldn't trade it for the world. Possibly two of the greatest matches at WrestleMania of all time. But would it have made sense to put someone over at the time? Maybe someone like Dolph Ziggler right now, Kofi Kingston. You know, they perhaps could have been bigger stars over the last decade than what they've currently been. I don't know if it's a mistake or not. I suppose time tells. But let me know your feelings in the comments below. It's a very interesting topic, really, about how superstars should be portrayed at WrestleMania. Do we need these older superstars to keep coming back in, taking away from the younger talent who are there all year round, by the way, for the big paydays? You know, it's the same when it comes to the shows in Saudi Arabia. They get these big paydays, and all these superstars that work the whole calendar, they get forced into a battle royal. Is it right? I'm not so sure. Noob & Co. got a few questions here for me. With Rhea Ripley defending an NXT women's title at WrestleMania, do you think the women's tag titles will be defended at TakeOver Tampa? Will GMs return? And do you think Asuka needs a gimmick so that fans will talk about it? 3 interesting questions there. I'll take the top one there, the Women's Tag Team Championships. I hope it's defended at WrestleMania, personally, because unless we have a tag team in NXT that would challenge for those belts, I don't see the purpose of putting main roster people on the takeover the night before. But it is interesting, because how do you do a takeover with a lot of the takeover titles on the main WrestleMania card? How long is WrestleMania going to be this year if we've got the top NXT matches, instead of being on the takeover, being on the main WrestleMania card? Would it not make more sense to put Charlotte Flair on the takeover the night before? Just saying, it's just an idea, but I'd like to have people's feelings on that in the comment section. But me, no, I would keep the Women's Tag Team Championships on the main card, possibly on the pre-show, the kickoff, because at the moment I would say that looking at the WrestleMania scale of the card, I think that that's probably the best suited place for it. But I do think that you know, Kabuki Warriors could take on maybe like Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. We've got Fire and Desire if they're still together. You know, we've got some strong teams there. If Bayley's still the women's champion, perhaps not, but her and Sasha Banks involved there as a team as well would add some credibility. Maybe that would push it to the main card. But yeah, it would be interesting. I would keep on WrestleMania personally. Will GMs return? Probably not in the short term, but I do like a GM. I still feel that I like William Regal. His role is NXT GM. No one seems to complain about that. But we were sort of tired of the GM role with Raw and SmackDown. I think if it's done right, if it's the right person, it makes sense. I personally think Paige was doing a great job before she was replacing her role. I felt she was really well positioned in SmackDown. I felt it really suited her. I just felt Raw was lacking the right GM. And of course, at the time, they had the stand-in with Corbin. And at the time, I felt it helped Corbin's character work. And so I think in a way it was a success, but I think a lot of people really were bored of that gimmick at that point when that happened. But no, I'm a fan of a GM, and I think it should come back. It certainly should come back to one show if it doesn't come back to both. Last question, does Asuka need a gimmick? Personally, I think she has one. I think the problem with Asuka right now is that although I do like when her and Kairi Sane go off in Japanese, we don't have a clue what they're saying. I wouldn't mind a translator. Just a fun twist to add to those two. I know they had Paige as someone that was there, but I don't know, maybe like Funaki would be quite interesting to bring him onto TV, for the Kabuki Warriors. I don't know, someone that can just translate what's going on and really just help them, because they sound good when they're talking, but no one really can take them seriously because no one knows what they're saying. So I think that would be the best way to help the Asuka go forward. But she's done a great job so far in 2020. She's been elevated so well, actually, with the Kabuki Warriors since they won the Women's Tag Team Championships. And also the program with Becky Lynch, I think that Asuka right now is doing just fine. She needs to now find her place in WrestleMania going forward. Keeping with the women's division is from Taya World Order 2. What's next for Jordynne Grace after dethroning the longest reigning and greatest knockouts champion of all time? Of course, talking about Taya Valkyrie. Love and Impact Wrestling question. It's good to get them involved on here. Jordynne Grace, yeah, she finally won the big one, didn't she? She had a few opportunities before, but yeah, she's now finally Impact Women's Champion, the Knockouts Champion, I should really say. Talk so much about WWE, you can easily get mixed up. But looking at it, it's interesting to see, really, because, I mean, the match with Taya, she's done now. I wouldn't necessarily see Taya going straight back into the title picture. Tessa right now is a match I want to see a lengthy feud with her and Jordynne Grace, but she's doing other things at the moment. I think Tenille Dashwood would be a great shout, personally. I think that Tenille hasn't done so much, really, with her performances so far in Impact. She was involved with Bound for Glory. It's been a little bit quiet since. Havoc and Sue Young and Rosemary have got their feud going on at the moment. So until those things really have a payoff, I think that Tenille Dashwood would be the best shout for that rival. I mean, we've got Madison Rayne and Kiera Hogan as well, and I know that we've got some fans of Kiera Hogan on certainly in the Twitter wrestling community, but I just don't see it believable at this point. Plus, Jordynne Grace has had a recent rivalry with both of them. So I want to see something fresh. I want to see it exciting. For me, Tenille Dashwood would be the right way to go. Question is based on AEW from Pro Wrestling Talk. What wrestler would you like to see AEW sign? Well, I want to see him sign a lot of people, if I'm brutally honest with you here, because I'm going to be a little bit critical of AEW here, although I must say I thoroughly enjoyed their show this week on TV. I thought the strap angle the week before was very well done, and I do enjoy AEW. So even though I'm going to be a bit critical here, I'm not saying I don't enjoy the show. I'm just going to say that I think that there are better wrestlers out there that could help them push and fight the cause better against NXT and WWE. Now, they actually win the ratings war every Wednesday anyway, but if you are a product that wants to improve, you need to get the best free agents if and when they become available. So, for me personally, the first place and the main place that they need to, which is my main answer for you here, is the women's division. And we just talked about Impact Wrestling. That is the locker room you want to be looking at trying to take people from. Taya Valkyrie, Tessa Blanchard, Jordynne Grace, they're probably the top three on that roster there. Tenille Dashwood, there are some great wrestlers there that you can make some great matches, and you can put them in with, perhaps for me, the one or two people that are connecting with the AEW Women's Division, like Riho has connected. Britt Baker, I do think she's doing a great job since she's turned heel. I don't think she's too bad in the ring either. Nyla Rose, I mean, for me, that kind of works as well. I'd like to see a Nyla Rose Jordynne Grace rivalry. I think that would work really well, if we're brutally honest. If we're looking of other superstars in other areas that I would like to see them bring in, I know that Brian Cage is a rumoured one that's meant to have signed. Jeff Cobb is making an appearance last week and this week. I don't think it's full time. I'd make sure those two are definitely on the roster. Those are two, bigger guys, and I think that AEW kind of lacks those bigger guys. Only Wardlow seems to be that one, and Luchasaurus at the moment, but neither are really top guys, big guys. Wardlow is just MJF's kind of bodyguard, and Luchasaurus is in a tag team right now with two arguably very smaller guys. But I mean, not that there's anything wrong with the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. But Luchasaurus for me at the moment, I don't see him as a main eventer while he's teaming up with Marco Stunt or Jungle Boy. I want to see him turn on them when he gets his main event push. But those two guys I mentioned there, Brian Cage, certainly, as well as Jeff Cobb, I'd like to see. I think Jay Lethal, the second he becomes available, same with Jonathan Gresham. They are both two very talented guys. Would love to see them involved. It's a shame Marty Scurll stayed with what he was doing, but that is what it is for now. They have a lot of high flyers anyway, but I mean, Will Ospreay, Aerostar, two guys I'd like to see involved. Drago as well, I think would be great as well. I know we have a few masked guys there with the Lucha Brothers, but maybe a masked Lucha stable would be quite interesting with those guys involved. With Drago and Aerostar, I'd be quite keen to see that. And with tag teams, I mean, if you can get hold of the Revival when they leave WWE, that would be great. The North, for me, one of my favourite tag teams involved right now with Impact Wrestling. They're quite tag team heavy though currently in AEW, so I don't think they need so many tag teams, but there would definitely be the two that I'd look for. And from WWE standpoint, the talent there, I mean, Luke Harper, I think, is it Brody Lee, I think is his name, on the independent circuit. I'd like to see him involved, and Matt Hardy when they come out. Both could be joining the Dark Order, and they might actually finally give a bit of credibility to that stable, because if you've watched this before, I'm not such a big fan of the Dark Order at the moment, I do like the video packages they put on. I just don't really buy them when I see them in ring. So I want to see a bit more, something that's giving me a belief that this is some sort of storyline I can get involved with. But there's a host full of names that I think would be great for AEW, but I think the women's division is where there most needs to strengthen. So yeah, for me, Jordan Grace, Tessa Blanchard, Taya Valkyrie, they're your top three to try and get hold of, if you ask me. Whitley with our next question. We're going NXT here for you, and just to give you a quick mention as well, if you've not seen my NXT TakeOver Portland predictions, they are available for you right now here on YouTube. Make sure to check that straight after this video. If Adam Cole retains though at TakeOver, should Velveteen Dream go after him next? Great question. Well, I'm going to give you a little spoiler, actually. Why not? We're here, we're talking NXT. I have gone for Adam Cole to retain the NXT Championship, and I think that he's going to do it by cheating. And I think that, personally, for me, the Ciampa will get his moment at WrestleMania. I think that weekend is the time that Ciampa is going to get the title in Tampa. But I do feel that the Velveteen Dream is someone who is being breaded for that run at the Major Championship. Certainly a program with Adam Cole or the Undisputed Era, I think, is going to be in the future. It just depends if Adam Cole remains champion or not. I think, though, if you're going to go for the championship with Velveteen Dream, he's got time on his side. He's such a young guy. He's got everything going for him. He doesn't need it right now. I think that he's had a great mid-card run with the championship, which I know people hate, but a secondary championship with the North American Championship. Now he needs to build himself as an upper mid-carder, moving himself towards the NXT Championship. So I think over the course of this year, that's what he should aim to do. But as for next, I think you should strike the iron when it's hot. I think Keith Lee is the guy to go for it. Tommaso Ciampa probably is going to be the guy that remains in the picture, though, but they're probably the ones that I think are most likely to. But do I see Cole versus Dream? Yeah, I definitely do. I'm just not sure it's going to be for the NXT Championship come perhaps as we go into the start of the summer. Pro wrestling ratings. Do you miss having stiff workers around the business like the Steiner Brothers or RVD, or is it better off not having guys like that around anymore? I personally am a big fan of variety. I'll try and keep this one short and sweet for you without harping on too much, but I think that it's always good when you have different styles in the wrestling ring. Some people are more athletic, some people are more technicians, some are more submission, some are hard hitters, and I am more of a fan of that variety. I feel that when I'm particularly watching any form of wrestling these days, particularly WWE and AEW, I feel a little bit more suspect for this, but I see a match start with two athletic people, no matter what the size they are. Within 2 minutes of the match, we see a suicide dive through the ropes. We might see another, plunger over the top rope or something. We go to adverts, we come back in, we see a rest hold, the heels go back into a rest hold. The pattern is the same in all the matches until we get to the last 5 minutes, and then we get these trading back and forwards of the big moves, and they're the times and the moves that you should care about in the match, because the rest of what you've seen before happens in every single match. So there we go, I've covered that part for you. AEW doesn't do it all the time, I will stress that, because I'm sure I'll get a little bit of AEW hate from the AEW lovers out there, but I have seen they have been guilty of this as well. But looking at it, I just feel that when you see people that are more submission-based, more technical-based, more high-flying, they should stick to their strengths. And like you say with hard hitters, we need people that have got some individuality, and I like the idea of people being different, because if they're different, they've got more opportunity to stand out. If they all do the same thing in the same motion, you've seen it once, twice, 3, 4 times all through the evening, and then someone has to try and one-up all the way through. And then when you've seen so many one-ups, how do you top it? And we've seen some incredible things from the likes of, I mean, Ricochet is one of my favourites to watch, but I mean, seriously, I mean, some of the things this guy's done, I sit there and think, how can you top what you've done? You know, it's very difficult, and it gets to a point that you probably think in a couple of years' time from now that he probably is not going to be as over and may not feature so much on TV, because, you know, he's already raising the bar all the time that he probably needs to work on his character work or something that's going to make him stand out a bit more. Guys like Chris Jericho know how to stand out and make themselves, you know, change all the time and go with the times. And sometimes Chris Jericho goes with the, you know, with his different styles depending on his gimmick, and that's what makes him remain. So for me, I like seeing the individuality, and those are the people that have the longevity. So for me, that's going to be my answer to your question. Do I miss that in a business? I certainly do. But that's all from me this week anyway. Thank you for watching Ask SCW. As always, it's great to have you guys on board. So thank you for the ones that have not asked questions before. It's good to have you here on the channel. And yeah, like I say, please like, share, subscribe. Keep up to date with SCW as and when I do post videos. I like to do this weekly. I do like to do predictions videos as well. And I will try and bring some fantasy booking stuff back as well. I like to always have a little dabble as if I have the pencil and if I'm booking it myself. You probably have noticed that a little bit through these questions already. But yeah, I do appreciate your viewership, and yeah, please keep supporting the channel. I'll see you next time here on YouTube, and please make sure to follow everyone on the social media platforms, everyone here on Twitter this time. Go and follow each other. Give everyone support here in the wrestling community. I want to see us all grow together. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time here on YouTube.com. You've been watching SCW, the wrestling channel. Take care.